Well, welcome. Today we've got on Jamie Deveaux from DropSuite, and many people probably haven't heard of DropSuite, and I'll let Jamie, you do the introduction as to who DropSuite is. If you're in the investing community in Australia as a stock investor, particularly in the small cap space, I would think that a lot of people would know because they have had an amazing run. We're just talking off air as to the success of the company and its reflection in its share price, which we'll get to. But Jamie, welcome. Thanks for coming on. Tell us, before we get into DropSuite, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and your role at DropSuite.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Tom. I really appreciate the invite to be here and speak to your customers and hopefully give them a good insight into DropSuite. So me specifically, as a lot of you on the call or listening probably can tell, I'm not originally Australian, I'm originally Canadian. So I started off in the MSP space selling to customers like Tom about 17 years ago. So in 2008, I started selling in Canada. And that was with a company that was selling remote monitoring and management technology in order to keep business availability with a large majority of small, medium-sized businesses. I was offered a contract to move to Australia in 2010, which I took and basically fell in love with the country and decided to stay longer. So 15 years later, I'm now an Australian citizen and very excited about that. And my daughter was born here in October 2023 as well. So, two Canadian parents and one Australian daughter. So we got a really good connection here. So more specifically, I've been dealing with your side of the market, selling into MSPs, managed services providers who provide outsourced IT to their existing SMBs. That's been my life for the past 17 years, selling globally and through Asia Pacific. So currently I hold the title of head of sales for Asia Pacific for DropSuite, and basically deal with all existing new customers and a myriad of other things as well in the organization.
That's awesome. Well done. Well, we're very happy to have you out here, and I'm glad you're enjoying it, mate. Tell us, as I said at the top, DropSuite is probably not known because it is one of those products that comes, or platforms and services that comes from the likes of us, which we recommend to our clients, and we'll get into what the product does in terms of essentially cloud backup and what have you. But it's such an important service. But tell us about DropSuite and how it started and its sort of evolution over the last 10 odd years.
Yeah, sure. So founded in 2011 out of Singapore. Oddly enough, really good conversation is it was founded by a individual who was an accountant at the time and had a website lost. So effectively, his website went down. He was unable to recover his site. So he hired some developers to create a backup solution for websites, and went to what we would call Dragon's Den, I guess, over here, Angel's Gate in Singapore, to look for funding from private equity. And he got it, and he started to build a company. So founded in 2011. In around 2014, we pivoted into the M365 space specifically because obviously Microsoft started to move people away from small business servers into the cloud. So, we had this great solution to build a back end on. So we started primarily with email, and then we started to back up all aspects of Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. So coming into 2020, we launched to be a publicly traded company in the Australian Stock Exchange. So we're actively now an Australian company. And we've had significant growth, as you said, and highlighted. You can track our successes publicly because we are a publicly traded company. Our ticker is DSE on the Australian Stock Exchange. But we've had really good growth, and I think a large majority of that, and I'm sure we're going to get more into this, I think a large majority of that is as people move to the cloud, they do understand the importance of being able to archive employee data and OneDrive and SharePoint data through a secondary backup solution that is separate to Microsoft and accessible in case anything happens with Microsoft, whether services go down or an employee clicks on the wrong email by chance or something like that, which causes issues. So pretty straight journey with us. We've stayed very hyper focused on Microsoft 365 and Google backup, we've been very successful because of that.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating story, and talk us through specifically because there is with the average business owner, I suppose, or manager or CEO, or even some in our industry, that the belief is that whether it's Microsoft or Google, it's in the cloud, everything's okay. I can get back access to versions or emails or SharePoint files, OneDrive files, Google Workspace files back forever because it's in the cloud. And look, it's a fair assumption for the large portion of people out there. It's I think unfortunately there has been this misconception that we move our data to the cloud and everything from a backup perspective is sort of looked after by Microsoft or Google, and that is simply not the case. Talk us through specifics without getting too technical, Jamie, in regards to that, and what Microsoft and Google do and don't do in the sort of, I suppose, the retention and backup of data.
Yeah, so more specifically, within the terms with Google and Microsoft, there's kind of two caveats to that, and there's a dependency on number one, what level of license you buy through one of those vendors. So, if you're buying a basic standard or a more premium edition, you get different levels. What we see is most small, medium-sized businesses sit in that standard arena. They don't want to buy the full premium solution, but they want to, have something that's cost-effective for their employees and how they're going to use the product. And what we do find is that, if an item is deleted, right, there's about a 30-day window of that item staying relevant or accessible in case of a restore. So what does that mean? As we see, more remote workers, we see more, employees leveraging collaboration tools. What we find is employees, there's a number of different things that might happen, right? But first and foremost, if an employee exits an organization, whether they were doing something bad or not, they have a tendency to delete their inbox, right? They delete their inbox, they delete their OneDrive, and they're just like, okay, I'm done with this job, so I'm going to go on to something else. I'm just going to delete everything from the past 5 years I've been here. And the issue is that if the company, the small, medium-sized business, specifically the managing director, isn't aware that employee deleted that data, on the 31st day, that data is no longer recoverable, right? So if there was something specific that they were looking into, maybe that person was a salesperson like myself who, did some deal with a customer and there was terminology in an email or something along those lines, if that data is deleted, it's unfortunately scrubbed from the cloud. So what we see is this increasing requirement for companies to be able to catalog all that data and hold that data for a specific amount of time, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, or, as much as I advise against this since the beginning of time. The other thing that we're seeing is obviously there's specific issues. Point two would be obviously there's an increase in ransomware attacks, phishing attacks, malware attacks across the board. So, even if the individual unfortunately clicks on the wrong email and then gives access to, let's say, a hacker or some individual, they're not going to have access to that M365 site. So the worst case scenario is if they can't access the site, they need a secondary location where they can actually restore from. So, if the advice is to not pay the ransomware person, then you'd simply just shut down that site, create a new Microsoft site, and then restore from an external avenue, which would be us. And then the third one is obviously just regular service outages. I mean, Microsoft's very good. They're a phenomenal company. So service outages don't occur as often as, some of the other cloud providers that you might see, but there is the chance that does happen. So, if there's a connection issue and an internet issue and you're unable to connect to that Microsoft environment, then, that data is readily accessible in the DropSuite UI, which I think is a key reason why you should have an insurance policy on that data.
Yeah, it's very valid. I mean, in terms of we have this deployed to a lot of our customers, the DropSuite product, and I completely concur with you in regards to bad situations. But what we're finding more and more, Jamie, is yes, that has a very important role to play, but just situations where current employee replaced, particularly as more and more email as well, but particularly SharePoint, versions have been written over or, files deleted or folders deleted, and then all of a sudden, 30 days tick by and gone, oh, we actually didn't mean to do that. Can we go back to a particular version, 6 months ago, et cetera, et cetera. We're finding that occurring a lot. And for customers and clients that don't have that capability, it's when they're trying to do that, some cases it's, oh, well, bad luck. But a lot of cases, you're looking at, may have had a very confidential deal that was taking place, so they did delete it, or, something, they need something for a legal case. And I want to get to lawyers specifically, because we deal with a lot of law firms. But that's another thing too, isn't it, Jamie, is where it's just being able to go back in time and see the state as is, whether that be email or SharePoint or whatever is in the Microsoft and in the Google Workspace ecosystem.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. Like, it's not always the end of the world. It could simply be, like you exactly said, I accidentally clicked save on a version of a file in SharePoint, and I saved over the version I needed, and I need to go back to last week's copy. So that definitely does happen. And with products like ours, you can do things like point in time restore. So if the worst case scenario does happen, someone clicks on a ransomware attack or they nuke their whole email inbox and they need to recover. The nice thing about, All I.T offering the DropSuite services, we could literally go back 2 hours or to when that email inbox was an hour ago, and we can re-image it just like it was, an hour ago or 45 minutes ago, right? Depending on what product or service you're leveraging with us. So the nice thing is that, you have this easy recoverable situation as opposed to maybe 48, 72 hours before you get things back in alignment. So yeah, totally agree. Whether it's that one specific folder, that one specific email, or it's a whole SharePoint site, the nice thing to know is that you can restore from a separate location.
It's critical, and that's why we're having this conversation, because, as I said, it's too often that we've got to educate, and this is exactly why, because the presumption is that the data can just be gone back in time forever, and that is not the case without a product like DropSuite. Talk us through. We do a lot in the legal space, and obviously eDiscovery might mean maybe too much for people outside of the legal space. So we might need to give you a little bit of background of what eDiscovery means and all that sort of stuff. But I know that's a strong component of DropSuite in regards to the legal space. Previously, Jamie, the whole process of eDiscovery. Maybe just talk to what is eDiscovery and the advantages and what that means.
Yeah, sure. So respective to so DropSuite's got really two components to it, right? We've got a product for your regular everyday run-of-the-mill SMB, and that doesn't change anything. It just means that in professional services industries like legal, financial, medical, there's a certain level of requirements or compliance or regulation that they need to adhere by, right? So with our entry level product, we do a standard incremental. We go out at a specific point in time during the day and we back up. With the archiving solution, which is more fitted for the legal clients that you have, and anybody really who has, professional services attached, we see a requirement to do email immediately. So as soon as someone sends or receives an email, we've backed it up. It's in our data center. It's non-deletable. There's a record of that connection, externally or internally. And what eDiscovery does is it makes those searching very easy. So for instance, in like a legal situation, a large majority of the time, because they're dealing with multiple, they're dealing with the defense or, they're dealing with specific clients, whatever the case is, there's a multitude of different emails that correlate to the same specific case number or, whatever they want to call it. So what ends up happening in the legal situation is a large majority of employees take a lot of time searching or scouring through a bunch of specific emails. And what eDiscovery does is it allows you, All I.T, or the user to actually create a saved search. So basically they can set a list of criteria of what they're looking for, maybe the client's name or or the case number or whatever the case is, and it allows them to save a search. And so they don't have to go in and continuously do 5 or 6 one-time searches continuously. What they can do with eDiscovery is they can save that search. So now not only will our product pick up every email sent with that specific keyword or that specific to or from subject line, it's going to do that moving forward as well. So any new email that is associated with that specific case will get filed into one specific location and make it very easily searchable for the individual who's looking for what they're looking for, whatever that is. So I hope I summed that up quite easily.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I wanted to go down this path because obviously it's very pertinent to to the legal and a few other sectors, and it's taken what was a very laborious process in years gone past and very costly because, just try and search parameters. Often we'd have a law client and they'd get, subpoenaed for information, and then we'd have to go off and do these searches. And as I say, it's laborious. It takes a long period of time. So this product, obviously, your DropSuite makes it happen in the click of a finger, which is awesome.
That connects very well, not to take away from your next subject, but also in compliance, we have the audit log. So, we team that up. So if it was in that case, going to the court and there was, potentially, CFO embezzled a bunch of money and we had email records or we had some things, we can actually quickly extract an audit log for that legal situation as well on the fly. Like Tom has the accessibility through his console to be able to pull those logs immediately and associate it with that specific case or whatever's needed for the court system. So yeah, definitely. I mean, for lawyers, this is, a blessing from a product perspective for sure, but also, just as useful for all SMBs or any customers that are looking for a secondary place for insurance for their data.
Yeah, and I think it really extends as well, Jamie, to clients. Again, we do we work with a lot of clients that sit outside the legal space but are dealing with government contracts, quite sensitive information, or they have, a CEO or a chief operations officer that needs to get a holistic picture on a situation that's happening in their business on a contract or whatever. That theory of the eDiscovery and archiving can apply to those situations as well. So it can become quite powerful for people very quickly, because obviously information and data is absolutely everything, which is super important. Is there anything else, Jamie, that DropSuite do that is niche or outside of that? I know we've focused on Microsoft 365 quite a bit, but as I said, it's certainly Google Workspace as well. But what else is DropSuite doing in this space? Just before you answer that, we like that DropSuite is a very niche product. You haven't tried to go out and conquer the world in terms of absolutely everything, because we've certainly found, in regards to your competitors, that there's a bit of a sense of trying to do multiple things across the cloud, and of course I understand that DropSuite are expanding into other areas, but you only do things that are very focused and that you nail, which we like. Talk us through some of the other areas of DropSuite, mate.
Well, more specifically, we've just announced in America specifically, this probably will be making its way to Australian shores in Q1, is Enter ID backup. So basically the Active Directory. And while that might not speak to your customers, this is kind of where everybody lives in the ecosystem of Microsoft. And if something were to happen from a hierarchy perspective, that does need to be restored. So it's absolutely crucial that you back that up. So to speak specifically to your point, Tom, what we're hyper focused on is obviously making our, and we've also brought some new features out with our product, which I'll get into in a moment, but we want to stay in alignment. We do this product very well. So we want to add either complementary solutions to it. We don't want to go looking to enter into new space, but what you will find from DropSuite is that we start to angle ourselves more into being that cybersecurity company, and keeping our roots founded in Microsoft 365. And Google. Some of the new features that we're excited to announce is the point-in-time restore. So actually, we just launched that a couple of weeks ago, which is where we can go back to we can recreate a mailbox for an individual user as it was an hour ago, let's say, or 2 hours ago. So if someone had a massive data loss on their email, and they said, Tom, we've lost everything. We need to go back to an hour ago when it was not bad, and I need you to fix that. We can do that with the product. We've also brought out something new and cool called intelligent backup. And what that allows you to do is if for some reason, let's talk about SharePoint again, if a SharePoint site got nuked, let's say something bad did happen, and Tom, All I.T was actually had to go restore that environment from a DropSuite perspective, what we can do is we can actually prioritize specific files and folders. So if the company were in a really bad situation, say, I need access to the purchase orders and I need that now. What you can actually do is you can actually prioritize that to be restored first, and the most non-essential folders and files be restored at a later time. So it gives that customer immediate gratification. They can get access to the things they need that are most labor, like that are most intense. And then obviously the other data is going to get restored over a period of time. And then lastly is the Enter ID. And we could probably spend another 45 minutes talking about that product, but that specifically deals with Active Directory in Microsoft and the individuals in an organization and how we treat those individuals. Right now, we look at files and folders, emails, things like that to restore. But in the future, what we're going to be able to, or right now, what I should be able to say is we're going to actually be able to restore the whole employee network, right? And I think that's a super important thing. So we're adding new SKUs, but new products to sell, but we're really kind of trying to stay in the realm of that hyper focus around Microsoft and Google Workspace for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just want to give one in particular example to that point in time backup.
Please.
Where it becomes very important is if we have a situation where a client has been hacked. A lot of this, there's also a bit of a misconception that someone gets hacked, they're exposed, and the fallout, whether it be blocking of files via ransomware or transactions, occurs in a pretty sort of narrow time frame. That's actually usually the complete opposite, where someone is hacked. The hackers will lay silent in a system, or silent to the end user for a period of time, and they're manipulating a number of things, whether that's file or communication. And it's very hard, once it's found out, to sort of backtrack, because if you haven't got point-in-time backups and trying to determine, the work that we do for people that come to us once they've been hacked, to try to determine what's happened and how they gained and the communication they made with people, without these point-in-time backups, it's very hard to determine what occurred at what times, because you simply can't go back in time without a product like DropSuite. So,
and what data was lost, right?
Correct.
Like you said,
because communication can occur outbound, what we've found, and then obviously wiped. And the first point of generally happens, particularly with communication hacking, to try and pay invoices or what have you. It's like the first thing that a client will, when this has happened to us, comes to us and says, well, we've got to let people, our suppliers know to sort of stem the flow of bad stuff. And if we don't have a product like this, if they're a new client and they're seeking advice, it makes it probably not very hard. It probably makes it almost impossible to do that reconnaissance sort of work, to work out what happened and when and where and how.
100%.
So, I mean, you've probably got 1,000 more examples of that, Jamie, but that's where it sort of comes in. And you've got to have it in from today. So this is not a product where you sort of go, I've got a problem, let's put it in. Time's past, it's not relevant. So it's relevant today, isn't it?
Yeah. 100%. For anybody who's not being backed up with our solution, it's just a matter of time, right? And I think and I get it. Most small, medium-sized businesses out there, they go, it's never going to be me. And I think they just kind of think that everything's fine. And if they do just a bit of research, this isn't impacting just large businesses like we saw with UniSuper at the top of the year, right? We saw Google totally drop the ball and drop their licensing, and they didn't have access. This is 6.5 million users, and the small, medium-sized business typically will go, well, it's never going to happen to me. The problem is it's probably already happening. You're just not aware of it, right? And so you bring up an extremely good point. Not only the hackers and the people who are out there, but just regular, employees. We're unfortunately human. We make mistakes. We click on the wrong things. We delete the wrong things by incident, and we just do those things accidentally. And that's not to say that we're never going to curb that from happening, right? The nice thing to know is that you've got an insurance policy in that data in case something does go wrong, and that you can recover and restore. And I'm not going to say there's not going to be any impact, but there's going to be minimal impact to your business service availability as that small, medium-sized business. So I think that's crucial. Yeah, really good point.
Completely. Tom. And I think the one of the other things before we wrap up, unless you've got anything else, but Jamie, I mean, people often ask me, what to do with security, and it's obviously it's a multi-pronged attack. It's prevention, it's detection, it's backup. There's we go through a very stringent, structured process to do this, and DropSuite plays a very important part. And the other thing that I say to people is it's amazing in terms of when we put DropSuite on, the value for money. And we won't get into the commercials.
Yes.
We can talk to people in regards to that. But if you just look at what you provide, and I know it's probably, I'm shining a really positive light and because I've got you on, but I genuinely believe, and I'm asked this question a lot, the cost of this service for our customers, and when they need it, it's not much, even for very small businesses. And we're a strong believer that DropSuite are by far and away the leader in this space. We're very, very happy to have partnered with you guys quite some time ago. And for those customers existing that haven't gone down the path of backup, we strongly suggest it and ask you to reach out to your relationship manager. And for incoming customers or people out there, we can certainly look at onboarding you into this process and making sure you're secured and adding it to what is a much larger I suppose stack and process, and we're very thrilled. And again, with all of these things, one parting comment before I let you wrap up, it's a lot of this is in regards to the people. I mean, it's an amazing platform, a great company, but you've got some great people there, and we like to do business with people. It's not just a transaction, and it's not just about the platform. Really important. But the people are behind it are very good. The support's very good where we need it. So we're thrilled and very happy to have you as a partner. Any concluding remarks, Jamie? Obviously, you can, obviously if you want to know more, you can certainly come through to us. But DropSuite are well and truly out there on the internet to sort of do your own research. But give us a wrap up and any other concluding remarks.
Yeah, I would share the same sentiment with your team at All I.T. You guys have been fantastic to deal with, and I think it has to go both ways for this to be a good relationship and a good partnership. And I think at the brunt of that, there needs to be value. So I completely agree with you, Tom. We're one aspect of a good security stack solution. Ideally, you want to be preventing bad emails from coming into the environment with a mail filtering solution. You want some form of endpoint detection and response in case an attack does happen. You want to be, alerted to that, and you want to be able to respond immediately. But those solutions, a large majority of those solutions are kind of your wall, right? And if one of those bricks gets pushed out and something happens, the good thing about our backup solution is it's there. So if you do need to recover, it's going to be there. I just urge customers to really talk to All I.T. about what the costs are associated, and then actually put that down to, an actual workflow cost. What do the employees cost? How much does it cost you if those employees are down and they're not working? Is the small sum of money for our cost per employee significantly smaller than what it's going to cost you if your whole business gets shut down because someone clicks on the wrong email, right? So I think those things are fundamental. I also think a fundamental thing is take a look at the terms and conditions of some of the providers you deal with. If you look at Microsoft, and again, Microsoft is a phenomenal company, we exist because of them, but if you look at your terms and conditions with M365 in clause 6b, it states very clearly that you should be backing up through a third-party solution. So what DropSuite does is we provide a data center in Australia. The data is not duplicated outside of Australia, and it's stored in a separate location than Microsoft. So it's a really good insurance policy. Think of it as another location for your data to be safe and secure in case you ever be in a situation where you need it. And I think that's the best way to think about this is not all businesses require the same level of security, but at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that we do need some level of security. So, talk to the team at All I.T. about your specific business, whether it's legal, whatever the case is, and have a good understanding of, what are the kinds of things you deal with day in and day out, and where there could potentially be holes for a security breach or an attack, or potentially there's internal bad actors, or there's internal mistakes being made that you need more education on. So I'd say that. I mean, we're pretty simple service. Backup's been around since tape backup, 30, 40 years ago, right? So, this isn't something that most of your customers don't know about. It's just, I think as we've moved to the cloud, customers don't really understand what that means to them, as opposed to getting the executive assistant to walk home with tapes in their backpack. You know what I mean? It's a totally different. And
you can't blame people, Jamie, because the data was, years ago was on premise, and
you could look at it in the corner.
Data up. And
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, I know I've got to back that up. And you can't blame people. As we said at the top of the interview, it was, it's gone to the cloud, so there's a presumption that someone else is looking after it.
It's
and
taken
that's
care
not
of.
the case. But regardless
Yeah.
of all that, you need to do that from a cybersecurity perspective and almost an insurance product. But the product, it does come in very handy for other issues if you've ever got a legal issue or you need a holistic view of data, as we mentioned. So, mate, really appreciate you coming on and telling us about DropSuite. If you're a keen investor, look up their chart, because the last 5 years has been amazing, and I'm sure you'll keep going on from strength to strength. And we like that because strong companies produce strong products and obviously, good people. So we're thrilled. And if you've got any questions in regards to the service we currently provide you with backup, there is various levels. Really encourage you to reach out to myself or to your relationship manager. And if you're a new customer or a potential customer, we can obviously guide you through it. And it's certainly part of our recommended stack, and something that you should be doing and putting in place sooner rather than later, because as we said earlier, we can't go back in time and put the backups in place. So, Jamie, again, thanks for coming on. Appreciate the alliance and the partnership, and looking forward to what else DropSuite does in 2025.
Lovely. I really appreciate the time, Tom, and thank you for allowing me a platform to speak to your customers. And yeah, I'm ready and available to work with you for any kind of questions or queries about DropSuite. And again, thanks very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks. See ya.
Cheers. Bye-bye.